Hello, beautiful. And what I'd really like to know is what is good in your life today? I'm Kia, and this is another episode of the Female Veterans Podcast. Today, I am very excited to share with you a group of amazing women doing amazing work for female veterans. Now, as you know, I love to highlight organizations that do work for female veterans because there's just not enough out there for us to help us to thrive and live our best lives. And so, whenever I can come across an amazing group of people who are doing work within our community, I have to bring them to you. I have to tell you about them and I have to share what they're doing so that you can reach out to them and get the support that you might need or someone you know and love might need. So today I'm really excited to introduce you to these women. I have with me the organizers of a really incredible upcoming event. It's called Women's Strength Through Culture and Gratitude. It is a free online retreat. So that's interesting, I think, just an online retreat for women. And it addresses the invisible wounds of war. So we've had over 20 years of war in this country. So many of us have deployed. I didn't, I didn't. I served right before the war started, but so many of you have. And I think it's really important to get together in a community like this and to work through our stuff, right? And just be together through it. So I'm so excited to share this with you. We're going to talk more about the event, but I want to introduce you to these women. I have with me Carolyn Hartness, and she is an Eastern Band, Cherokee, and Norwegian, committed to a life of service, assisting individuals, families, and communities to create spiritually based wellness for themselves and future generations. She is an incredible lady, just doing incredible work, and I'm so excited to have her here with me today. And I have her two friends with me who are also organizers of this event. I have Deborah Guerrero, who is a Tlingit tribal member and is a social worker whose passion is to assist in transforming other people's lives, including working with women, veterans, to help with addressing their PTSD. Girl, you already know. You already know this PTSD thing is just something that we all deal with, whether you serve during peacetime or wartime. So many of us deal with that and struggle with that. So it's so incredible to have someone with experience and who works with this and that can help us get through that. And last but certainly not least, I have a shipmate in the house. Now, you know how excited I get when Navy is in the house. I mean, no shade on the other branches. Okay. We all have value, but I'm Navy. So come on. So I have Dolores Lola Madragon. Did I say that right?
Mondragon. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. And she is an enrolled member of the Chickasaw Nation. She identifies as a veteran, Two-Spirit, Chickasaw, Chicana, grandmother, and student of Native American and Indigenous religious tradition. Lola is a community drumkeeper, a singer, veteran organizer, and a graduate student at UC Santa Barbara in the Department of Religious Studies. And I mean, that is an incredible bio. And so, these women have what it takes to help and to help us to heal and to, just have a better experience. And I can't wait to see this retreat that they're putting together. So let me start with Carolyn because I want to hear from all of you. What made you go down this path of service and helping other people, just in general, even before veterans?
Well, I don't know. I've just been raised that way. We didn't have a lot when I grew up, but there was always enough food on the table in case people dropped in. I can remember Christmas Eves coming home from my grandmother's house at 2 o'clock in the morning in the snow and finding some poor guy on the side of the road with a flat tire, and my father stopping, and we brought the guy home. He spent the night, fed him breakfast, went back and fixed the car in the morning. And that was like common. That was common practice, and was just always raised to think of helping other people, to make sure that you were aware of other people's needs and did what you could to assist them. So that was kind of the milieu that I was raised in, and just from there, always got interested in doing work that was really service oriented. I went to college and had my father pass away in my freshman year, and realized I think I was really in college because of him. And when he passed on, I felt kind of lost. And if I'd had a good counselor, they would have said, look, you get A's in social work and psychology and this and that. Why don't you do that? But I didn't have any advice, and nobody steered me in any good direction. So I ended up majoring in languages, which is also very people based. I mean, I was very interested in learning languages because I wanted to understand other people besides just English speaking people. And I got a scholarship and went to Norway for a couple of years and studied at the University of Oslo. And when you know another language, your worldview changes. There are certain languages that really you can barely swear in, and Norwegian is one of them. I mean, the worst things you can say are, I think, kind of hilarious, like fy fan is fy the devil. They have developed a word for the F word, I have to say, in the last decades. But it's really a kind of a benign language as far as cursing anybody out. It's a really fun language to read fairy tales in. It's just very animated, and anyway, it just was interesting to me to get deeper into people's thought processes, and I did that through language. And ended up working at the University of Washington for 16 years after graduating and coming back from Norway. And then got involved with the Native American Street Youth Program in the early 90s through United Indians of All Tribes. And in that program, they said I had to learn about fetal alcohol syndrome. And I said in my ignorance, wow, look, I'm working night and day, hardly making any money. And what's FAS? I didn't know.
Wow.
And they sent me to a training, and my spirit and my heart broke, because I realized I was looking into the face of FAS every day in that street youth program. Every time I went up to the children's prison, every time I did parenting circles that were filled with grandparents and not parents who were raising their grandchildren. So that really struck a deep chord in me. And I have spent the last 32 years really involved in that educational piece of really trying to help people understand what it is and how you can manage to work with the population. And actually, it's much more about educating the people around that human being, not the person who's affected. It's the people who are in their life that need to understand what has to be done, because you're not going to change a lot of brain damage. It's pretty difficult. You have to just figure out what to do with the situation you have. So that's been an incredibly humbling job. Really, I've met so many heroines and so many women, particularly, that are raising, some of them not their own children, adopted kids and foster kids with fetal alcohol, who are just amazing in the amount of love
Wow.
and patience and dedication they have to this population. So I don't know. I can't imagine doing any other kind of work. Lately, I've been doing a lot more spirit circles and talking circles, like in drug and alcohol treatment centers. And I work with one of the local tribes here as a consultant on their reentry program, so helping people who are coming out of jail. So that's my path, and I'm old, but I'm still doing it. And I think I'm just going to fall over one day. They're going to go, oh, I think Carolyn's done. She fell over.
It's interesting. I feel like the same way, actually. I feel like I love what I do. And this has been such a purpose-filled, rewarding path working with female veterans. And I feel like I'll just never stop. So I definitely understand how you feel.
And how I got to the female veterans part is really Debbie. Debbie and I have known each other. She's younger than I am by a bit, but we've known each other since we were both fairly young. I think she was for sure in her 20s. And she got involved. She has much more of a story around women veterans than I do, and she got me involved some years ago in a group that was doing a couple day retreat for Native American women veterans, and it was just really rewarding to be there, and it was a privilege to be there among those women and hear their stories and allow them the space to address healing, address their trauma and address their healing. It was really beautiful. So that kind of prompted my interest. And then my housemate became involved with men. He's a veteran, and he became involved with conferences for men veterans. And they had some money and wanted to put on a conference, 2 separate conferences, women vets and men vets, and then the last day bring them together. And this was like a couple of years ago, and this was supposed to happen in Hawaii. So the 3 of us here were supposed to go to Hawaii, and we were going to do sweat lodges and all kinds of things. And then COVID happened.
Oh.
So that got canceled, and we ended up doing a workshop online with the same title. We've carried the title over. And we ran it like we would a sweat lodge. We had 5 days, and every day was like a round. The first round of the lodge was introduction, and so this is going to be a little different because it's 3 days, but we're still using the same, I think, approach and ideas, and trying to help women really address those invisible wounds, and thinking about things like post-traumatic stress and military sexual trauma, all of the things that our veterans suffer. But I also love that you started this with what brings you joy, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we want to begin and end. And that's why we talk about this as getting strength through culture and gratitude. Yeah, I think that, being grateful for even things that seem horrific. At some point in your life, you realize that they have given you more than you had before, and that you've made it through it. And these women are such heroes. They're such warriors. And I hope in our gathering online that they get to put their shields down, and be vulnerable and really talk from their heart and open their hearts to all of us who are there together in that circle. And things happen in circles that you can't predict. And we love that.
It's amazing. And it sounds amazing. And I think that you are absolutely right. There is a beautiful healing that takes place through that vulnerability and opening up and being willing to share. And I know that a lot of my former guests on this podcast have said as much to me after being on the show. And they talk about how cathartic and healing sharing their story is. And I think that's a really beautiful thing to bring women together, especially women veterans, in a safe space where they can be truly vulnerable and really share and really get healing. And I just want to say, I really love the concept of doing it like a sweat lodge, because I did have my first experience, as you well know, and it was entirely memorable and a learning experience for me. And it taught me a lot about myself, actually. So I think it's a beautiful way to incorporate that and to help women. So tell me, what will you be doing and guiding the women through in this retreat?
So we've just put it together more like you're trying to do this with us too, like a conversation. And we do have an agenda, but I really like to respond to what starts coming up. And in situations like this, we can't always predict what's going to happen and who's going to need what. So I think that, the way, like I've always worked in organizations where I could with somebody else, at least one other person, because people are attracted to different people. And I'm sure that even happens on the Zoom, that somebody might respond more and I might have something to say to that person because of my own personal experience that they can really relate to through me, where somebody else is going to think, oh, I want to talk to Lola because she said blah, blah. And I really, that's where I really resonate. So we're not gonna give you the whole agenda outline of who says what.
It's okay because I feel the vibe of it's intuitive. And I think these things need to have room. They can't be so regimented. And when I do workshops, it's the same way. Like I like them small, I like them intimate, and I like it to be intuitive so that I can work with the female veterans and we can have those moments that are important that help them in some way. So I love that. I love that it's going to be sort of more that way instead of this like structured thing that is very sometimes we are as veterans running away from structure a little bit anyway. So I love that. So Debbie, I would love to know more about your work with female veterans and what led you to that.
Good evening. First, I'd like to introduce myself the way that we do ceremonially. My name is Deborah Joan Guerrero. I'm Tlingit in Filipino on my father, Roy Bell Guerrero side. Snohomish, Cowlitz, French Canadian, Snoqualmie, Nez Perce, Irish and German on my beautiful mother, Barbara Woodworth side. I'm from the Eagle Brown Bear Clan, Juneau, Alaska. My Tlingit name is Gunseek, which means last of the royal princesses. It was my grandmother, Lillian Bells from Juneau, Alaska. She was full-blood Tlingit. My grandfather was Juan Guerrero from Cebu, Philippines. On my mother's side, my grandmother was Celia Woodworth from Shelton, Washington. My grandfather was Thomas Kahele from Hawaii. And I come here totally honored and privileged to sit in the same circle with each and every one of you, my beautiful sisters. And I have known Carolyn since, oh my God, the 70s. And I'm just a couple years younger than her, not that many. And so I treasure our friendship and the bonds that we built through the years. And I was fortunate enough to meet Lola in 2015 through the very first Native Women's gathering that I had been invited to by Ellie Painted Crow. What I do in my life too is I'm a social worker. I've been doing Indian child welfare since 2000. So 22 plus years. And I earned my MSW at the University of Washington. And I just love working with our people and working with these families and children. It's really incredibly heartbreaking and very hard. Sometimes people ask me all the time, how do you do this work? To me, it's about these babies and these families and just working in Indian country and also being a role model because November 24th, I had 26 years clean and sober. And so I can see myself as a role model to them and to not ever judge them, for their addiction because, I part of my career, I worked at the University of Washington when I was earning my degree under Dr. Karina Walters at the University of Washington School of Social Work. And we did a project called the Honor Project. And it was to study historical trauma and discrimination and how it affected the health and wellness of Native, gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender two-spirits. And it was just a beautiful experience. And so I've been out in the world with people. I got my education to loving people. I really believe, and I say this all the time, that I got it at Pike Place Market. I started working there when I was 12 and worked there till I was 27. But I love people. I've been a people person all my life. I'm also a social worker, mother of 3 beautiful children, Charles Nolan Tripp, Barbara Marie Tripp, and Nicholas Bernard Tripp, and a grandmother to 2 beautiful little girls, Lillian Marie Skeens and Priscilla Ann Skeens. They're just, I really, I'll say something in a minute, but just about being a grandmother, it was just so eye-opening for me and so heart-opening for me. And I really had no idea what that love was until my first granddaughter was born in 2014. And just makes me smile. And I'm also a drum keeper. Kaya's heartbeat, grandmother's heartbeat. Kaya is a Coast Salish word, which means grandmother. So this drum is called Kaya's heartbeat. So it is grandmother's heartbeat. And this drum came into my life in 2006 and changed my life forever. And this drum is a drum that I met Ellie Painted Crow the second year I went to this drum camp that I had taken her to this drum to. Well, actually, the drum came to me at this drum camp in 2006 in California. And then the next year, 2007, I went back to the same drum camp and met Ellie Painted Crow. And Ellie Painted Crow had been reserved in the Army Reserves for 22 years. And she shared this vision of taking 1 million drums to Washington, D.C. in a stand for peace. And when she shared that vision in a room of 150 women at this drum camp, it just blew me away. And I couldn't believe she was talking about this. And then she was standing up in front of this room talking about military sexual trauma. This was in 2007. And it was not being talked about then on the news. It wasn't anywhere in the news then. And I was like, oh my God, I just stood there and I just cried. And I'm not a veteran, but my father, my brothers, my cousins, my nieces, nephews, on both sides of my family have been in the military. So anyway, Ellie and I had started working together, and or when she shared that vision, I asked her after she came down from, sharing her story, I said, are you doing this work? And she said, oh my God, no, people think I'm crazy when I talk about it. And so I said, well, if you ever do, let me know, maybe we could do something. I don't know. And I was working at the UW at the time, and she lived in Merced, California. And that was in July of 2007. And in 2 months later, she called me on the phone and she said, well, I was just thinking about what you said, about helping me do this, try to do something with this vision. So we just started having conversations on the phone. And that's how I started working with veteran women. She asked me to go to Buckhorn Springs in Oregon in May for Memorial Day. And they were doing this, they did a video. There were 26 veterans in this room with Michael Meade, veterans and their families. So she invited me as her sister. And we stayed there for 5 days. And we went into this room every morning, and we were there all day, and like from 9 a.m. until, 5 or 6 p.m. And we'd take breaks and have meals and stuff. But it was about having these veteran people tell their stories and write their stories, write songs, sing songs, do poetry. And after that 5 days, they loaded us on a bus and took us into Ashland, Oregon, to the Shakespeare Theater, where the veterans acted out their poetry or sang their songs or read their stories to the community there in Ashland, Oregon. And people were just blown away. I was blown away. We were all blown away. It was really incredibly beautiful. They hadn't done that before. And so anyway, that is how I started working with women. But then Ellie, we had come up with the name Turtle Women Rising for our organization. And we were working on this vision, and we decided, with the help of a couple of other women, Carolyn Brandy is a famous drummer down in the Bay Area, and she was helping us to, get Turtle Women Rising going. And we got a website, and her son did the logo for us. And in the planning of it, we said, well, we're going to drive this drum. We didn't have a 501c3. Ellie said, well, there's these grandmas over here in Sonora. And she said, I'm going to write them a letter. I said, okay. So she wrote these to the Center for Sacred Study. And she wrote this letter to the grandmothers asking them if they would join us at our gathering. We were going to, have this gathering in Washington, D.C. to sing and drum and pray for peace. And so in in the process of the planning, Carolyn Brandy was the one that said, this drum is the heartbeat. And when we go to sleep at night, our hearts don't stop beating. So this drum should go 24 hours a day. And so we're like, okay. And so that's exactly what we did. There was a man, he had retired from the World Health Organization after 30 years. He was a healer. His name was Don Alfredo Sefiriones. And he saw our website and he said, I'd like to know if I could donate $5,000 to you and join you on the first day and start your sacred fire at the same time that the drum starts. And we said, of course. So, but when Ellie wrote to the grandmothers, the Center for Sacred Studies, we didn't have a 501c3, but they were our physical, we asked them if they would be our physical agents. So that's how we started to be able to collect, money to do this trip and to do this whole thing. We actually raised $32,000 and we drove the drum from Seattle, from Suquamish Indian Reservation to Washington, D.C., right across the street from the Washington Monument in a small park. And we started, it was amazing. It was just incredible. It was just how spirit moved everything. And we had a teepee that was donated. We had it set up by these 3 people who had never set up a teepee before. And when we were doing that, this eagle light on the front pole of that teepee and stayed there for 30 minutes. And it was an omen. And people came and we had a circle of tobacco ties. We had an east gate. We smudged people off as they came in and we had a medicine altar and we had people feed the fireplace first with their medicine and pray at the altar first. And then they go over to the drum. But other women from all over brought their drums. And we didn't have 1 million drums, but we had I think it was 10 drums. And there was another drum from Vashon Island here in Seattle. These women asked us if we would drive their drum, Buffalo Heart, with Kaya's heartbeat. And we did. And other women from California came. And it was amazing. And so that's how I started working with veterans. And then in 2015, that was 2008. And then we did it again in 2010. And then, but on the 4th day, the first gathering we did, 8 of the grandmothers, 8 of the International Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers, 8 of them came and they joined us at the gathering and they said prayers for us. And they came and drummed at this big drum. And the drum is big. She weighs about 190 pounds in her body. She's 5.5 feet across. And there's a whole nother story behind that, how she was made. And she had a 14-year history before she came to me. But so the 8 grandmothers came and then they came back again. They asked us to drum at Lincoln City on the beach with them for peace. And then they asked us to go to Montezuma's well, take the drum there to pray over that water that was so polluted. So we did that. We were driving all over, going all over, taking Kaya's heartbeat all over and drumming and singing and praying for peace. And then in 2015 is when I met Lola, because that was the first gathering that we had done in Ojai, California, where a mansion had been donated to us for a whole week. And there was I think 17 women there. Wasn't it, Lola? There was about 17 women there. It was a beautiful, beautiful gathering. So I've been doing this work and that's how I met Lola. And then Ellie went to another direction and Lola and I have been on this same path. And Lola had, I don't want to tell her story, but I know I just was so blown away by it because, she had never sat at a drum before. And I think it was at a powwow that she met Ellie or something. And Ellie had her sit at a drum. You have to tell that story, Lola. But it was just so healing. And anyway, so we've just had this magic and this spirit-led gatherings and spirit-filled, gatherings and this love. And I was going to say that, I also I did women's camps for, oh my God, women's empowerment camps for a lot of years. My first one was in 1994. There were 300 women in a circle. It was life-changing for me. I forgot to say too that, when I met these grandmothers, and I've been telling this story lately too, because I tell people, I traveled around with the grandmothers for a few years, and I had no idea what that love was like until Lily was born. 2014. It makes me cry because, I was like, oh yeah, we're with the grandmas. We're hanging out with the grandmas. Oh my God, the grandmas are so cool and all this stuff. Now I'm a grandma. Know how cool it is to be a grandma, and just how beautiful it is. What an incredible gift to have that kind of love. And I also I've worked with human trafficking survivors, and worked with my beautiful sister Roxanne White here in Seattle. Does murdered missing Indigenous women and people. And actually today, December 11th, is the anniversary, 17-year anniversary of my nephew who was murdered.
Oh.
And was never solved. So I've told that story when I'm with these, in the gatherings of the murdered missing Indigenous women and people. And so I don't know, I just feel I'm so blessed to be in this circle. And through this time that I've spent with Lola and all the beautiful sisters that we have now, that we carry so closely in our hearts, these beautiful veteran women who have, experienced PTSD and MST, it's been such an incredible gift to witness them, them willing to come forward and willing to be in a safe space and to be able to open up and share their stories with one another. Because since 2015 until now, in the last 7 years, I've witnessed just such incredible growth in each one of them, and how these gatherings and this time, I always say, and Lola knows this too, that time is the most important gift we give one another. And so sharing that time together, we've come to know each other and love each other and be able to feel that safety and that love, and to see each other return each year and witness the growth that has happened, and how we are all in the world, and how just the purpose, our life purpose that, we get to share with one another and to just be here. So
it's beautiful. I mean, all the skills that you bring to the table just is so powerful of how you can help veteran women. And I'm so grateful to have someone like you in our corner doing all this great work. So, I mean, I know this event is going to be incredible. And you have a very beautiful story. And I would like to hear more details, but I think we could go really far into it. So I'll save that for when we're not recording. But it's just really amazing to hear everything you've done and all the work you do with women, Indigenous women and veteran women, and women in general. It's beautiful. So
thank you.
So glad to have you with us today. Lola, Shipmate, you are next. I have to ask you, when did you serve?
I served back in, I think it was 95 to 98.
So we were in the same time.
Yeah. Was, one of the first combat ships.
Really?
They started putting us on combat ships back then. It was like the new thing. Yeah.
How many girls were with you on your ship?
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
Oh, yeah. Probably not many is my guess.
It was an amphibious assault ship. So we would have like 1,500 Marines, when we went out, kind of come out of Camp Pendleton and kind of take over.
Right. So you know firsthand what it's like to serve in the military, and a time where they were just putting females on ships. So it was quite
On
a
combat.
transition on combat ships. It was quite a transition, and during when we served in the military. So what was it like? I want to hear your story more in depth. So I'll have you back for that. But I want to find out what, in general, what your military experience was like for you.
It was, I grew up as when you're a kid, you're called what is it, tattletale? I think chismosa.
Mm.
Especially when there was things that weren't going right, and so that was my experience growing up. I believed in the right thing, that everybody was supposed to do the right thing. And if they didn't, and I mean, I was 5 or 6 or 7, from very little, hey, that's not the way you're supposed to do it. Well, that just kind of became my journey growing up. And, you find out real quick, the retaliation is part of what happens when you speak truth to power. And so I'll just say that my time in the military was pretty much an experiment on survival during that time. And the ship was probably my last command. I think in that short period of time, I had, gosh, I lose track sometimes, but it was either 5 or 6 commands during that short period of time. And so I was honorably discharged, I guess, which was a good thing. I don't know. It taught me a lot. It educated me right quick about my personal investment in wanting an institution such as a military to create structure for me, have positive outcomes. Because I grew up a kid that was, runaway shelters, domestic violence, alcoholism, all that kind of stuff. And so you try to get away. And by the time I enlisted, I just know I needed, a roof over my head and 3 square meals a day. And so, yeah, so I have found that my story is not unique. And so it speaks to a certain population. And I think that with the more experience and the more testimonials you hear along the way, the more empathy you have, and the more willingness, I don't know, that you learn to kind of harness to do the work in places where you see that there's just gaps, that you're just not even seen. And I'm sure you know this from early on, but when you get out, it's not like, at least for me, I wasn't necessarily proud of my service. I didn't know what to think of. I just got home and was on my parents' couch for a bit as you were just out.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of trying to figure out how to get back to where you were or to start anew. And now the separation when you get out of the military is so much different than back then. I mean, I had like maybe an hour, where they like made me sign paperwork and they're like, you're out.
Wow.
So it wasn't even like this week thing, like a week
You
or
didn't
something.
have taps.
No
You didn't have
taps.
any...
I was on deployment in Hawaii. I was taken out in Hawaii. So me and this other shipmate that had gotten pregnant, they just kind of like rushed us through and just flew us back.
Wow.
And so, it just kind of speaks to those type of experiences that people, you find out real quick, are not as unique as you thought they were. And I think that for me, at least, I kind of put it away. I didn't think about it. My husband retired from the military, so I still was on military bases. my both my daughters were born in Navy hospitals
Mhm.
here in Florida and out in Japan. We did some time out in Italy. But it was, I think you're in a space of trying to just get through it, to be a mom, to be a dependent all of a sudden,
Mhm.
to be all these other things that you never, or at least for myself, I never had the time to decompress and really kind of figure out what it was that had happened to me while I was in the military. And I graduated also from the University of Washington in Seattle, completely different time frame, because my husband was stationed up at Bremerton.
Oh.
I ended up graduating from UW in American Ethnic Studies with a concentration in Chicano Studies. And, so my work was around ethnic studies. And, so once you start learning about the Chicano movement, once you start learning about just the discrimination and just and it was very much focused on Chicanos because I grew up on the border in El Paso. So
Mhm.
Fort Bliss was right there. So I grew up with soldiers like all around me. It
Yeah.
was, my classmates were all kids who were coming back from Germany. So our classrooms were, I was doing German in high school, and every kid in there was fluent,
Mhm.
but I didn't, it was not until much later that I put two and two together. But anyway, I want to correct Deb. I think we met in 2014 only because her daughter was pregnant when my daughter was pregnant. So not the 70s, but 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 yeah, these two women that I've done this work with before and have invited also to the Veteran Women's Indigenous Healing Circle, which is that circle that started back in 2015, have contributed and just supported in the most incredible ways that you can imagine when you get to a place of cynicism.
Mhm.
You become cynical. And I too met Ellie Painted Crow at the Bay Area American Indian Two Spirit powwow up in San Francisco. And I started doing my research around veteran women because somebody gave me the advice that if you're going to do a PhD, do it on something you care about.
Mhm.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
it won't make any sense and it'll just sour you. And when I started doing that research, there really was nothing on me.
Wow.
There was all these
Incredible.
gaps in women of color. I mean, there was a black-white dichotomy, of course, but there was no, they talk about Latinas occasionally, maybe, but Native was just off the radar. It wasn't there. No
Truly.
indigeneity, nothing
Mhm.
dealing with that community. And I finally sat at a drum in Stanislaus. I got invited out there by Ellie again, and I sat with these two incredible women, and one of them was Zamora and Luz, I believe. And Zamora started singing Soldier Girl. And there I am sitting on this drum. And, by this point in my life, I was, I'd say occasionally an atheist. You just kind of go with the flow, and I have no faith in any system.
Yeah.
Just
Mhm.
kind of just put it away, and you just kind of operate, mommy mode or whatever, daughter mode or whatever it is that you need to do.
Just
And
trying to function.
just trying to just day to day.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I start drumming, and when she's singing Soldier Girl, all of a sudden I was just like, oh my God, my body remembered what my mind had tried to forget and put away. And there was
That's deep.
no turning back. There was no denying the effects that sitting on that drum and hearing the women sing, and not just sing, but sing with power. And it was a prayer, a powerful prayer that I was like, oh my God, what is going on? I mean, I had to get off the drum and just kind of walk away, and I was wigging out, and I was like, what the hell's happening? I'm very in my life because of how I grew up and because of the abuse. You never let anybody see you cry. You do not show that part of you to anyone. And I just couldn't contain it. And I was like, wow, this is, at the time I didn't know what it was. But later on, I learned that it was medicine. It was medicine. And I was like, man, I got to tell, I have a really good friend of mine. We were out in Japan together. She's in the Marine Corps. And I was like, God, I got to tell her about this. There's no way she'll she's got to know about this. So I wasn't a drummer, and I had no connection to this community when I knew my friend out in Japan, and I'm a recent arrival. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I think that that's okay. I teach at the university here at UC Santa Barbara, and sometimes I get students that tell me that they're ashamed they don't know their language, or they are ashamed they don't know their ceremonies, or the traditional, they don't have regalia or any of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, why would you be ashamed of an organized, systematic genocide on our people? That was no consequence of our own, no fault of our own. They don't apologize for having everything taken from us. That's what the oppressor wants us to believe, that it's our fault. And although I was teaching it internally, it took me some time to actually sit with it and be like, that's right. There is a reason I don't know these things.
Oh, that
And
makes me feel emotional.
so, I don't claim to know a lot, but what I will say is that knowing Carolyn and knowing Deb and knowing like Linda Woods, just these incredible women along in my life, a creator just kind of put them, these gifts, these blessings on my journey in this lifetime. And I've just been really overwhelmed and actually quite brave, because they lift me up in a way that it's unexplainable, so that I can do that work. And you stay close with people like that like lift you up in that way, because they keep you going, and some of the women have been going to, so now I organize this thing every year of veteran women coming together. And we'll do like talking circles, drum circle, sweat lodges when they're available, equine therapy. And one of the things that was kind of like bothering me was that some of the stuff that was out there, like you had to be post 9/11 or you had to be honorably discharged.
Right.
And I was like, that those exclusionary kind of rubrics are really unnecessary.
Right.
So for this gathering, I don't really, I mean, of course, asking them to come is already one of the biggest steps to even come. And to me, that's just a success already. But we try to cover all their travel and cover their lodging and their meals and everything as best we can. And these incredible women like Carolyn and Deb and others volunteer their time. And I would say it's through them that we're able to get to a place of rematriation, of going back on that path, on that spiritual path. It's because of our aunties, our elders. And so I'll try to keep it short, but this work is important to me because it's saved my life. And many of the women I've been around that have been coming to these other gatherings that we've done have similar experiences and truths. And we're hoping that this gathering that's being done on Zoom can't recreate that, but it can be a beginning of maybe those that weren't able to step outside of their door and get on that plane, or have childcare, or have to take care of parents, or it can be a really difficult thing to just be able to get out.
It
And
makes it
so
accessible.
yeah, so this hopefully is an accessible way for them to just even begin to ask, for example, what is a sweat lodge? What do you mean by that? And beginning those kinds of conversations around the power of coming together in these circles, and in doing it in just like a good way, in a sincere way and a gentle way. And I don't think I would say that if I didn't believe that that was the case, because I wouldn't want to go to a place that wasn't that. Like you're saying, you push against those structures, those systems that were just so aggressive and so oppressive. And so, what does it mean to create community and create a circle where you can return to, or even recreate, or even begin to understand what camaraderie is, especially if you didn't have that in the military, and everybody talks about,
The camaraderie.
the camaraderie of men. And sometimes if we were the only woman in the room, which was, I'm sure, I know was my case and probably yours too, it's like, how do you build camaraderie when with other women, when sometimes you're pitted against each other?
It's true.
Um,
That's so true. I mean, I didn't have that experience per se, but I witnessed it. And I've spoken to countless women who have had it in various degrees, whereas the women were pitted against each other, or they were in a unit full of men, or they were ostracized for whatever reason. So that is a really important point that you make, because we always talk about the camaraderie of being in the military, but not everybody experienced it that way.
yeah, or being the woman that has to represent all women,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you're the rubric,
Yeah.
and you just the pressure's there.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for having us on, and I hope that helped answer a little bit of your question.
I think it definitely helped show how talented and what beautiful heart that you each have to do the work that you do. And I love that you said, this can get a conversation going, or women that are not Indigenous may not understand, what is a sweat lodge? What does she mean by the drum? And like the importance of it. And so it's an opportunity to not only go and experience these things and learn, but to really find the beauty of it and see how beneficial it is to you. So I'm so happy to have the space to be able to share this with a larger female veteran community, and to share your event that you're going to be doing. So I would love to find out more about the event itself.
Well, like I said, we're not exposing the agenda.
Not too much,
exactly.
but just like when it is and how we sign up and all of that good stuff.
Well, and it is we want to be a safe container for healing and relationship. I mean, if at the end of it, people walk away with that, I'll be happy. Even if they don't remember all the details of every discussion we have, or even what the meaning of the sweat lodge is, or whatever.
Right.
As long as people walk away feeling better than when they came into the circle, and especially that they feel safe and feel heard. I really, really want people to recognize that we are, all of us, listening, truly listening and hearing what people say and taking it to heart. And I really hope that's what happens. Also, to just recognize that, these experiences are not unique to just one generation, that these are, wars past and present. So we're looking to bring in active duty people, veterans, dependents, family members, and friends, people who might run organizations that support veterans, anybody who can help fill that container with support and love and understanding. And the event itself is going to be January 20th online from 6 to 9 o'clock. Then the next day, Saturday, the 21st, from 9 to noon. And then the 22nd, let people sleep in another hour, start at 10 and go till 1 o'clock. We unfortunately we had to redo the flyer because we had to reschedule the time, and I thought it would be ready today, and it's not. When it is, I will send it to you so you can post it in Instagram or out there where people can see. But if people want to communicate with me through a Gmail that I set up just for this, it's my name, Carolyn, Carolyn, no period, Hartness, HARTNESS, the number 1 at gmail.com. So if people send me an email at that address, then I will be sure that when the flyer is ready, which should be in just the next couple of days, that they get a copy of the flyer and we have a way to communicate and they can register for the event.
That sounds amazing. And you know me, I will put all the information in the description box of this episode. You just scroll down. That is where you read what the episode is about. Scroll down and you will see all the information on how to reach out to Carolyn and this amazing group of women to sign up for the event. You can also find more information about it. Stay tuned to my Instagram at the Female Veterans Podcast, and you will see details coming up on there as well. And I will be sharing this with all my channels, and I hope to see you there because I know that it's going to be an amazing event. And so I think with that, I have a question for each of you. What is the most powerful thing that you think that this event will leave female veterans and all of these amazing people who are invited to attend with?
Well, I will say, judging from my experience with the last time we did this and checking in with people afterwards, just that feeling of developing community. In the beginning, it's kind of scary. People are hesitant, a little reticent to maybe say everything that they're thinking and ask questions and all that. And then by the end, people started even telling jokes, maybe laughing a bit more, and just relaxing into each other and recognizing the common things that we all had together, whether we were veterans or supporters, whatever age we were. In the end, we were women sitting around in a cyberspace circle, connecting to each other. So I think for me, that was the thing that I walked away with being the most happy about, that I really felt that women, number one, felt that way because they were heard. They had an opportunity, to really tell their story and to just feel accepted and not judged.
That's beautiful. And what would you say, Debbie?
I would say basically what she just said, but I also think it's so important that women know that they're not alone. Mm-hmm. Because women isolate, or people isolate, and they always, I came from a hard childhood. I had things that happened to me when I was, very young, and I really felt like I was the only person in the world that was experiencing that. And as I got older, I realized, and it wasn't even like maybe last year, I learned that two young women, 2 doors down, my neighbors were experiencing the same thing in their home that I was. And so I really felt like, I've always known that I'm not ever alone. I'm not ever, ever, ever alone. And the ceremonies that had the privilege of being a part of came into my life through my sobriety. And that has been my touchstone. It led me to Sweat Lodge, it led me to the peyote ceremony, led me to Sundance, And so I just feel like, we don't ever have to isolate because there's so many people out there. And also the thing about it too is that, sometimes I was actually talking to a friend yesterday and she was like, oh my God, this is so, I've just been so down and so, it's just been so hard and blah, blah, blah. But I had a friend who lost her son. He's 29 years old. He was just buried today.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
the thing about it is too that, I've lost 19 people during this pandemic, 19,
Oh
with
my.
my sister being one of them last October. And so, you want to talk about grief. It's like, I was really, having a hard time and struggling. And I really don't like to use that D word, the D word. Because when you go to the doctor and you tell them you don't feel good, you're down, you're feeling down,
Yeah.
they say, "Oh, here's some medicine. Here's some medicine." And I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I did, that's one of the first things they say, and it's like I always put my hand up. It's like, no, thank you, no. Um, so I mean, I'm not judging other people or anything like that, or but it just isn't for me. I just know that I'm just gonna deal with this, and I can deal with it, and that I have ways. And we all walked into a room and we all put our in the room, center of the room. I know I'd walk out with mine because I would look at around and see what other people are dealing with, and it's like, oh God, thank you for what I don't have in my life, that I don't want in my life, that I don't have in my life, Creator, and that I am on Creator's wake up list every day. And every day is a beautiful day when I get up and I go turn my porch light off and open the door and say, thank you. Thank you, Creator, for a beautiful day. That's what I'd like them to get.
Oh my gosh, that beautiful gratitude, the beginning of, and end of everything, I think. What do you think, Lola? What would you say?
Yeah, I think the word you just used, gratitude. I think that was one of the reasons that we used that in the title of the retreat, was kind of collectively giving gratitude. Because we sometimes it takes a lifetime, if not longer, for forgiveness, but we can have gratitude for the circle that we're creating together, or getting to at least see somebody else's face on a computer screen that has had shared experiences or similar experiences. And so I think at least that has helped me, is finding gratitude in the things that I do have. Um, and 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 when that becomes difficult, kind of thinking about some of the wisdom, or some of some of the wisdom that has been shared with me. For example, when Deb was talking about time, and to be blessed with somebody else willing to share time with you. Pick up the phone, return that text, send you a quick email, be brave and send a Christmas card, which I have a hard time doing every year. No, it sounds like not enough, but I have found it to be just incredibly healing to be able to walk in gratitude for the things that I do have and the things that I don't have. And so, if anything, that's my prayer for this retreat.
That's beautiful. And since you are our veteran in this beautiful group of organizers, I would like to ask you, what advice do you have for our veteran sisters that might be interested in coming to this event?
My advice, I guess, if anything, one of the things that I do know about the women that I will sit with, is that there is no judgment. You are cared for, and that this is a spirit-led work, and work that comes from a place of the heart. And so it's safe. It can be safe. You do have an opportunity if you need to, breaks. We try to be gentle. At least that was the experience that I had when we gathered last time. Um, but it shouldn't feel like boot camp. It shouldn't feel like, this aggressive space. And so that would be I don't know if advice is the right word, but my consejo, or like, just kind of like, yeah, it'll be okay. It's a good spot. If it wasn't, I wouldn't show up.
Good point. So I love that. And actually, if it wasn't, we wouldn't even be having this podcast, because I only bring the best out for my female veteran sisters. And I am so excited about this organization that you have put together, and just everything that you're doing with this program and how it can help them. That is a free online retreat. So again, join that, and you can find it on my Instagram. The previous flyer is there. The new flyer will be there. You can look through the description of this episode, and you can find all the details about it, how to contact everyone, how to contact Carolyn, how to contact me if you want to reach out to me to get more information. And you can also go and send me an email through thefemaleveteranspodcast.com, and I can find out all your information that way as well. And again, women's strength through culture and gratitude. And I want you to just check it out, because I think it'll be an amazing, amazing, amazing time. And is there anything else you guys want to say before we wrap it up?
I just want to tell everyone that's going to listen to this that I am excited to meet you. I can't wait till we sit in the Zoomy circle together and share time. So I'm looking forward to meeting each one of you that really want to come and join us in this healing circle.
It's going to be beautiful. And
yeah, and I would also share that if they want to invite one of their sisters or their mom, or, it's not only open to veterans, but their family members as well. So if the family members, never heard the story of another female veteran, or was in a space that is quite like this, they're more than welcome to come to just even gain some understanding of this community. So the more the merrier.
I love that. And everybody should be interested in hearing our stories, I think, which is why I do this podcast. So again, I want to thank each of you for being here and being my guest and sharing your story and sharing the work that you do and sharing about this amazing event. And I cannot wait to see how it turns out and how you help people and hear all the stories about how amazing it is. And I hope to see you there. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. I want to say thank you so much to all of my supporters and my listeners. Remember to give me a 5-star review if you're feeling it on Apple. That helps this podcast spread to more people and to get out into the world and do its work, right? And also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at the Female Veterans Podcast. That way you can see when this event is going to be going on. You can get the flyer, all the details, and updates. And well, thank you for your support and your love and coming on this journey with me. I love you guys, and I will talk to you next time.